Hello everyone, and welcome to my counter build guide for using the longsword against Safi'Jiiva in the Safi'Jiiva siege. I think that the longswords are an especially good choice against him because they have a lot of horizontal reach. You're aiming for his arms. They're a sever type weapon, right? And his arms are your target, right? So you can kind of chill out behind his neck, you can kind of chill out under his belly, get terrific horizontal reach with the longsword, and this means even when he's shifting his arms around, you typically still land your move. So of all the matchups I had when I was testing the weapons out, I felt like the longsword had one of the easiest matchups. It still dealt tons of damage. Another nice thing about the longsword is you don't really have to build any special skills, right? So if you're building the greatsword, you kind of got to get focus into the setup. If you're building, let's say, dual blades, you're kind of trying to fit marathon runner in. If you're using the lance is one of the worst. You have to get like guard, and you got to get guard up, and maybe offensive guard somehow. So some weapons require extra skills to do the damage. Longsword does not. So you've got room for part breaker and you've got room for defensive skills as well, which is why I think it just has such a good matchup against against Safi'Jiiva. We're going to be talking about Stygian Zinogre because we're going to be using the Stygian Zinogre longsword. Check this build out. This is my budget build. Budget build just means it's more accessible for you. You can craft it earlier. We're using the Stygian Zinogre longsword here. Okay, it's almost like Capcom was thinking we're going to release Stygian Zinogre, right afterwards we're going to release Safi'Jiiva, and they're going to use the Stygian Zinogre weapons in order to fight Safi'Jiiva. I think that's what was going on in their minds. Take a look at what we got going on for the skills. We've got Crit I 7, and then we've got Maximum Might rather than Weakness Exploit. What is going on there? So this is just another case where the longsword is kind of having an advantage. Safi'Jiiva doesn't have the best hit zone values. Even when you soften him, they're not that good. And with the Weakness Exploit, the monster has to have low or good enough, I should say, hit zone values in order for Weakness Exploit to ever activate. If the hit zone values are still bad for the monster, it just doesn't work at all. It doesn't work. So Maximum Might, on the other hand, we call it a static affinity type because it doesn't really matter what the hit zone values on the monster is. As long as you've met the requirement that your stamina bar is full, Maximum Might is going to activate. And of course, they nerfed it so that it has to stay full for a while. That's not a problem for the longsword. The longsword really doesn't use it doesn't use stamina for much of anything, so you get plenty of uptime with Maximum Might. Crit I, of course, is giving you static affinity as well. You're pairing that with Crit Boost. Handicraft is just giving you more sharpness, of course. On the offensive side, you can also see we have Elder Seal Boost. This is because against Stygian Zinogre, when you apply Elder Seal to him, you actually get better hit zones for dragon damage, and we're dealing a fair chunk of dragon damage. The new Stygian Zinogre weapons were like an improvement versus the Valhazak weapons. I believe they did just a bit more damage. So yeah, this is going to be my budget build. I think it's very accessible. You have all the defensive skills, got a lot of terrific offensive skills as well, and it's just overall really well rounded. Stygian Zinogre's longsword is very accessible as long as you're at the right level. You kind of unlock that chunk of DLC and you can obtain, even if you don't upgrade it, it's still a decent weapon, but it would be nice if you could upgrade it as well. If you have to play very quickly, because the point is you'll replace it eventually with an Awoken longsword is what you'll do, right? But if you had to play with the longsword and you didn't really have much, grab the Stygian Zinogre longsword, even the unupgraded version of it. Let's go ahead and move on to the next build. The next build is going to be an alternative version of the Stygian Zinogre longsword, and this time we're using a different skill entirely. We're using latent power. Okay, so the Stygian Zinogre armor set gave us latent power secret. Latent power secret activates easier, so you don't have to really take that much damage for it to activate. So why is that useful? It's because really, Safi'Jiiva, he has a lot of moves that they don't necessarily knock you over, but you get hit by his moves very quickly. You get Fire Blight quickly. There's a lot of moves that you're going to pick up and take damage from throughout the fight. So I really do think latent power is a serious consideration if you want to max out your affinity, because Crit I is going to give you the other 40%, right? So latent power and Crit I are going to max you to 100. Then of course we have Crit Boost, Handicraft, just like before. We have our Part Breaker decorations. With Safi'Jiiva, the objective is to break his part so you can move between both arms and try to break those parts for everyone. There's some other bonus stuff I have on this build that we couldn't really fit on the other one. You'll notice we have our Blight resistance to level 2, and then we have Phoenix Medicine here. Well, the Coalescence skill is going to give us some bonus elemental attack damage as well as just regular attack. So you can become Fire Blighted and then just kind of roll out of the Fire Blight, and you're going to get bonus damage the whole time, right? So that's the whole point of that. You can actually drop the Dragon Seal and add more Coalescence right there if you don't really feel like the Elder Seal is helping. I don't actually know what's better. I suspect Coalescence is better. So that is going to be my Stygian Zinogre build, where you're just dealing a little more damage, probably. So you do have to take a little bit of damage in order to activate that latent power, but I don't think it'll be too hard for that to happen. Alright, and then here's a completely alternative build. This is going to be a poison damage setup. One of the things we know about Safi'Jiiva is he takes an enormous amount of poison damage. So this time we're going to be looking at the GRathian armor set, regular GRathian, for the poison duration up skill. So check this out. We have poison duration up. You only need 2 pieces of armor from the set in order to activate it. And that's exactly what we've done here. We have the GRathian Vambraces beta and the GRathian Coil beta, and this is giving us poison duration up. Then we just build poison attack 4. So check out the damage on this build. So poison duration up and poison attack are both the significant part of the build. But then we also have crit I7, we have handicraft 4, crit boost, and maximum might. So once again, you see maximum might, which works pretty well on the longsword. You don't have to have, you don't have to have latent power secret. I don't recommend weakness exploit necessarily, unless you can break his arms really quickly. But yeah, maximum might and latent power seem to be working pretty well. In the mantles, we have tool specialist to get our mantles back sooner. You can see we have the apothecary mantle this time, and that's going to be giving us even more poison damage. When you go to the canteen, don't forget you can eat for the oh gosh, what's the name of it? There's a feline food skill that you can eat that gives you even more damage with your ailment. I believe it's called like Feline Specialist. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But yeah, I believe it's Feline Specialist. And overall, I think it once again looks like a very nice looking build. I tested it myself. I was dealing tons of poison damage, of course. The monster would become poisoned very quickly. You can see we have a poison of 560, which is nuts. Yeah, he becomes poisoned right away, and you just keep him poisoned throughout the fight, and this deals a ton of damage to him. So if you don't want to use Stygian Zinogre weapons, you can swap over here to the Lunastra weapon and deal plenty of poison damage while also dealing quite a bit of raw. And part breakers on there once again, just like usual. I think I already mentioned that, didn't I? So those are going to be my 3 longsword counter builds for fighting Safi'Jiiva. Let me know how they go for you. Let me know if you like them, and let me know what you think you'd like to try as well. I'm going to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.